As early as 1884, researchers investigated their own ability to distinguish between differing weights held in the hand. They plotted their conscious confidence in the difference between weights against the accuracy of their judgments. They found that when the weights were so similar that they had no conscious confidence at all that the weights were different, their pure guesses were still correct 60% of the time, with high statistical significance. Psychological research into the unconscious largely fell from favour from the 19th century to the first half of the 20th century, thanks to the dominance of behaviorism at that time. Interest in the unconscious remained common among European psychologists, with Jean Piaget being perhaps the best known. Frederick Bartlett at Cambridge from the 1930s onwards was an exception in British psychology because he was interested in cognition and unconscious processes. Before the 1960s, his work was largely excluded by the dominance of the behavioural psychometric hegemony. In the 1960s and 1970s, experimental research on what we now call subliminal perception gained significant ground and increasing academic acceptance in both British and North American psychology. It was confirmed that the threshold for unconscious registration of presented information is lower than the threshold for conscious registration for all sensory modalities. This threshold can be in terms of the duration the information is presented for or the level of intensity at which it is presented. Note that this threshold for conscious registration varies with the factors that inhibit analytic thinking. A key instrument for research into the unconscious that exploits this threshold difference is the tachistoscope. This instrument allows images or text to be shown to subjects for brief periods of time. The time period can be adjusted so that it is above the threshold for subliminal perception but below the threshold for conscious perception. In this way, experimenters can expose subjects to purely unconscious stimuli and observe the effect they have on their behaviour. Numerous experiments have been done using the tachistoscope that leave no doubt that there is an unconscious mind. More controversial is whether, and in what way, the properties of the unconscious mind differ from those of the conscious mind. It's of note that while Freud's psychodynamic theory is based on case studies, there is some experimental evidence to support certain aspects of it. In perceptual defence, the unconscious mind withholds information from the conscious mind as if it is in some way threatening. Freud based this theory on observations on hypnotised patients recalling painful, suppressed memories. In an early experiment, subjects were shown words that were either neutral, such as apple, or emotionally charged, such as whore. The duration of exposure of these words was slowly lengthened so that it passed from below to above the conscious registration threshold. Subjects were asked at what point they became aware of the word, and were also monitored using skin conductivity, a measure of physiological stress. It was found that emotionally charged words were recognised later than the neutral words, and that skin conductivity changes came before reported recognition. The theory of subliminal psychodynamic activation is that messages presented subliminally that contain elements of tension or stress, as opposed to reassurance or calm, can affect behaviour or cognitive performance after the message has been presented without the subject being aware of it. This effect has been demonstrated in a number of experiments. In one such experiment, Silverman and colleagues tested Freud's theory that guilt about love for one's father is a source of stress that leads to conflicting sexual ideas in some females. Female undergraduates were shown the message, "Loving daddy is wrong," or the message, "Loving daddy is okay," via a tachistoscope. They were all unaware of having been shown these messages, and after exposure they all underwent memory psychometric testing. Subjects performed poorly only if they had seen the message, "Loving daddy is wrong." In another example, Patton and later Gerard and colleagues investigated the effect of the term "Mama is leaving me" on the behaviour of people with eating disorders. This was based on Freud's theory that eating disorders were a response to feelings of loss and abandonment by a person's mother. Subjects were shown this phrase and similar but not emotionally loaded phrases such as "Mama is loaning it" via a tachistoscope. Afterwards they were given the opportunity to eat wheat crackers. They were all unaware of being shown the phrases, but those with eating disorders who saw the phrase "Mama is leaving me" ate significantly more crackers. Most experimental evidence that has been collected refers to laboratory tasks and games rather than Freudian theory. Typical experiments ask subjects a question and show them the answer subliminally, then assess responses and how they vary with time or other factors.